It is my great honor to welcome to the podium this morning Mr. Joel Neeb.
Wow. Thank you. What an introduction. What an introduction. Hopefully I could live up to that because that was incredible. Thank you, Rustin. What an opportunity to talk to the graduating class as you're about to embark on your journey, on your adventure. You know, it wasn't that long ago that I was sitting in those same chairs. Not that long ago. 23 years ago, I was sitting in chairs just like those, thinking about what lay ahead for me. For me, I was totally exhilarated because I was getting out of the house. There was all these adventures I was going to go on. I was off to college. I was going to go figure out what I was going to do with my life. But at the same time, I was terrified. I had pretty good reason to be terrified because I was going to the Air Force Academy, and in just a couple of weeks, like 4 weeks from where you're sitting right now, I was going to be in boot camp, getting yelled at by drill instructors and waking up at 5 a.m. and spending the rest of my summer being indoctrinated into the Air Force Academy. Combination of exhilaration and terror. I didn't know it then, but those two emotions would be the major themes for the turning points in my life. Let's talk a little bit about that. So this is the F-15. Let's put a picture of the F-15 up there. That's the F-15. That's the plane that I flew for 15 years in the Air Force. I flew more than 2,500 missions, most of those as an instructor pilot, which means that I'm teaching, the next generation of instructors and Air Force fighter pilots. At any given point in time, I'm flying faster than the speed of sound. I've got 350 instruments and dials inside my cockpit. I've got 7 wingmen out there that are around 22 to 24 years old, a little bit older than you guys. And I'm trying to keep them safe, trying to stop them from running into each other or from running into that mountain inside of the cloud. So I've got a lot on my plate while I'm leading that. The F-15, believe it or not, is the same dimensions as a tennis court. It's actually a little bit bigger than a tennis court. So if you can picture me sitting around, the net of a tennis court and flying that around the sky, that's about what it feels like to fly an F-15. It was an amazing experience, terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. When this picture was taken, I was on top of my world, on top of my game, on top of my plane, ready to take on anything. But life, as it often does, threw me a curveball. And that curveball was in the form of cancer. And not just cancer, but stage 4 cancer. And not just stage 4 cancer, but a particularly rare and deadly type of cancer. And for all practical purposes, I found myself on my deathbed for about the next year of my life. They told me to expect to live about another 18 months. Very slim chance of living anything beyond that. Definitely don't expect a cure. Stage 4 cancer, at that point it's spread to other parts of your body. When they stage it, that's what that means. It means it's gone into other places and very low chance of actually capturing and getting rid of all of it. And so extremely low point in my life. And believe it or not, simultaneously, literally on opposite sides of the hallway in a doctor's office down in San Antonio, Texas, where I lived at the time. I'm on one side, my son's on the other, and we find out that he has a tumor in his lung. So at the exact same moment, my saint of a wife is trying to take care of me as I'm finding out that I've got cancer. My son's got a tumor in his lung, and we're both undergoing this horrible trial in our lives in March of 2010. Worst part of my life. The good news is my son went under the knife. He had his surgery. He got most of his lung removed. And we found out that tumor was precancerous. It absolutely would have become a malignancy, but by the grace of God, we found it early, and we were able to get that removed and get that out of him. He's on his path to recovery, but meanwhile, I'm on a path to a different destination. For all practical purposes, it looks like I'm going to die. And so I was extremely happy about my son, but at the same time, I'm preparing for my end of life. And after you live on your deathbed for about a year, you have a lot of time to look back on your life and reflect. In graduating class, that's what I want to talk to you about. I want to talk to you about what it means to be happy. When you look back at your life, what are those things that are going to make you happiest in life? Because when I did that, on my deathbed, I was surprised. It wasn't exactly what I thought it would be. As I look back at my life and I measured those things I valued and those things I regret, and you're going to have both of them. Everybody does. Those things that I cherish, those memories I'm happy about, and those decisions I wasn't excited about. When I looked at the regrets, I was surprised that I didn't regret the failures. And I had tons of failures. That great introduction is fine that Rustin read, but you can do a much longer introduction on all the things that I didn't do well in my life. And yet I didn't regret those times when I failed. I regretted the times when I didn't try at all. As I sat there in the Texas night and watched the fan spinning overhead, trying to sleep, I remember many nights thinking about all the opportunities that I missed. All of those times where I'd rather fantasize about what I could be, what I could have done, instead of the reality of me actually trying that experience. I let priorities get in the way. I let life intimidate me. I let things stop me from doing the things that I wanted to. I regretted those times when I did not try. Forget the failures. You'll never think about those failures again. And on the other side of the coin, what I valued, the things that were most important to me, surprised me as well. So as Rustin read that list of accolades and, Air Force Academy, throwing my hat in the air and getting my wings as a pilot, that means nothing. When I look back at my life, all of those things were completely inconsequential. When I was getting ready to die, I could care less about the wall of trophies that I had in my office. It was about the times where I was on an elite team on an inspiring mission. That's it. Those are the only things that I valued as I look backwards. Those times when I was at the Air Force Academy, the incredible team that I was a part of there, being pulled on this mission, something bigger than myself at 18 years old, moved into a direction that I couldn't believe I was getting to be a part of, that journey. When I was a fighter pilot, on a flying squadron, elite individuals, on an inspiring mission, protecting our president, flying abroad, doing amazing things that, I dreamed about. And then finally with my family, my wife and I, creating life. And the opportunity to mold young people and push them in the direction that we know that God wants them to go and take new human beings on that journey. Elite teams on an inspiring mission. When you look back in your life, I think you'll see the same thing as the most valuable moments. The other revelation I had from my deathbed is that I could still be happy. I spent a year waiting for the axe to fall. I spent a year believing that the day that I having right then, that day was going to be the best day for the rest of my life. Meaning from that point forward, I had all reason to believe that it was downhill. And every day I would get a little bit sicker. And it made sense because I was doing chemotherapy, my hair was falling out, I was becoming gaunt, I was very sickly. I had just had massive surgery where they removed one or parts of 4 organs or all of the organ. And so I was on the downhill slope. And amazingly, I was still able to be happy. And when I look back at that period, it really comes down to 3 principles. And graduates, these are the 3 principles that I'd leave you with. Lessons from a dying man at 33 years old, as I'm looking back at my life, the things that made me happy and the things that allowed me to continue to be happy through this trial that were so important. I call them the 3 G's. G number 1 is growth. You got to do something to grow every single day. But here's a trick. Growth means getting outside of your comfort zone. Growth means doing the things you're afraid of. Nothing worth having is inside of your comfort zone. I'm going to repeat that. You will never look back on your life and start a sentence about the most monumental, incredible part of your life and say, everything was going great, and then it just got better. You're going to say, I was suffering. It was uncomfortable. I was outside of my comfort zone, and I grew into this opportunity. So instead of running from that pain, realize that that's exactly what transforms us. We're all going to fail. We're all going to have challenges. It's in how we respond to those challenges that really defines our life. If you do what is easy in your life will be hard. But if you do what is hard, your life will be easy. And believe it or not, at my point in this life in 2010, when I was flying airplanes, I was actually doing something that was pretty easy for me. Of course, it wasn't always that way. When I was 22 years old and I went out flying for the first time in Mississippi and they let me go fly in an airplane in pilot training, I'll never forget. I'm all by myself, solo in an airplane. I'm 7 missions into it, meaning I've done this 6 times with an instructor, and that's it. I'm 22 years old, 6 times with an instructor, and now I'm by myself. And I roll upside down about 3 miles above the ground, and I look up, which is down because I'm looking at the ground, and there's about a ½ inch of glass and a seat belt between me and a 3-mile fall. And I'll never forget the feeling of exhilaration, but terror, absolute terror that I felt in that moment. But that's where the growth came from. Those are the moments that I cherished. Now, if you fast forward to the point in my life where I found out I had cancer, and what I regretted so much because I'd stopped growing, I'd stopped pushing myself outside of my comfort zone. And you're saying, yeah, come on, you're flying fighter planes, you're going faster than the speed of sound, you're doing the scariest things on earth. You're outside your comfort zone. Believe it or not, I actually was firmly inside of my comfort zone the entire time. By this point, at 2,500 missions, I'll never forget, just before I got cancer, I'm flying upside down, going hundreds of miles an hour. I'm a couple feet away from another airplane. And I look up, which once again is down, so I look at the ground, and I see I-35, which is the road that I got to take to get home. And there's an accident, and there's all these lights. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, traffic's going to be terrible today. And I realized that I was not doing anything to grow. I was coasting. Even though it looked cool and I'm flying fast and I'm doing the fun things, I was firmly planted inside my comfort zone. And for about a decade, I had been there. I hadn't done anything that challenged myself. I hadn't done anything that really scared me. You know, you have a few scary moments in near miss or something like that. But beyond that, it was a pretty, going through the motions kind of job at that point. And I regretted that. As I'm getting ready to die, I'm thinking, oh God, I wanted this to be the chapter in my life, not the book. I wanted to do so many other things. And I really just stopped trying because I got complacent. So class, what I challenge you to do is to grow and find those moments of exhilaration and terror. So for me, that meant getting way outside my comfort zone. As soon as I got healthy, I had to do the things that we promised each other we'd do in the chemo room. Here's what I mean by that. When I sat in the chemo room, you're in a big room full of other chemotherapy patients, and everybody's hooked up to an IV, and you're trying not to throw up, and it's this horrible experience. But you're having a conversation with these other folks, and these are the ones who can relate to you. And so as we're doing this, we're all saying what we're going to do when we get healthy. Because everybody's optimistic. I mean, everybody's saying, I'm going to do this when I get healthy. I'm finally going to live this dream. I've always talked about doing this, but now I'm finally going to do it. And very often, that person wasn't at the next session for chemotherapy. Very often, they didn't return. It wasn't necessarily because they died. It meant the chemo wasn't working, and they were on a palliative point to their end of the life. And I watched more and more of these people disappear from that room as I stayed, and we continued to have this conversation about what we do when we got healthy. And I'll never forget when I got out of that situation, and I basically survived this tragic scenario. I'm looking back at this and I said, when you survive a tragic scenario, sometimes you have what's called survivor's remorse. If you have a plane crash and there's only one survivor, that one survivor will say, why did I survive? They're actually depressed because they survived. They have remorse over that situation. I didn't have survivor's remorse, but I did have something that I call survivor's obligation. I had an obligation to live out the dreams that we all expressed in that room. I had an obligation to do the things that I committed to, that I said, if I get healthy, I'm finally going to get outside of my comfort zone. I'm finally going to go after these big opportunities, and I'm finally going to go after them. Graduates, don't wait for a tragedy before you make that commitment as well. After all, we're all survivors. You don't have to go through cancer to be a survivor. We're all survivors. You're a survivor of heartache, you're a survivor of broken family, divorce, survivor of lost loved ones, sickness. We're all survivors, and we owe it to ourselves to make our lives as amazing as they can possibly be. So what did that look like for me? So I got way outside my comfort zone. We heard about it already, but I went on a 5-year anniversary on a day that my doctor said I had a 15% chance to live. And instead I went down to New Zealand and completed an Ironman triathlon. First time I ever. Anybody do Ironman triathlons in here? You're crazy. It's insane. I had never done a marathon before. I had never biked. My last bike said Huffy on the side. I didn't swam more than 50 feet to go grab a ski, and here I was doing this Ironman triathlon. Way outside my comfort zone, but an amazing experience and growing into something incredible. Then I went and got my MBA, went back to business school, way outside my comfort zone. Then I left the Air Force, way outside my comfort zone. I said, I committed to this just being a chapter. I've got to actually do it. I've got to move into a new chapter, and now I'm in the business world. I just got back from a trip visiting a CEO of a $40 billion company and helping him to build out his next vertical, way outside my comfort zone. In a couple weeks, I'm going with that same CEO and climbing Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa. Exhilaration and terror. And the next one, this was just crazy. I went out and did American Ninja Warrior a couple weeks ago and had this amazing experience. Dude, it just totally should not have done this because I'm 41 years old. These guys are all 20, and they're just amazing gymnasts, amazing athletes. But once again, outside of my comfort zone, terrified and exhilarated at the same time. Graduates, those are the memories that will mean the most to you. Over the next couple of years, you're going to have some out of your comfort zone moments that'll define your lives. When you propose or get proposed to by the love of your life. It's going to be exhilarating and a little terrifying at the same time. When you figure out what you're going to do next, what you're going to do in life for your profession, exhilarating and terrifying. You have a child, and you hold a person in your hands, and you say 24/7 for the next 18 years, this person is my 100% responsibility. Exhilarating and terrifying. And then someday, when that child grows up, and you're sitting in an auditorium, and they're getting ready to graduate, and you're watching that child walk away from your life onto their own adventure, and you're exhilarated for them, but at the same time terrified for the change it's going to bring in your life. Those are the moments we grow from. That's what you'll cherish. All right, that's the first G, growth. Second G is give. And you're thinking, if you're probably trying to guess what the 3 G's are, you're thinking he's probably going to say give. Yeah, that's the obvious one. That's cliche. Give, you give back. But let me tell you why that was so powerful in my world. So when I had cancer and I was down and out and I was feeling terrible and at my worst in my life, I had thinning hair. I feel useless. I can't really even be a dad anymore because I'm hooked up to a machine and my wife's completely taken over everything in our household because she had to, and my son's had surgery. I had this incredible opportunity to go start a youth outreach program in San Antonio at the same time, which at the time sounded crazy, but I just needed something to occupy my mind because I kept focusing on my end of life, and it was just terrifying me and it was overwhelming me. Here's the amazing thing I found out. When I was giving back to those kids, when I was helping out those kids, I forgot about my problems. When you give to somebody else, you can't feel sorry for yourself anymore. And we all feel sorry for ourselves. There's things that we regret and things that we wish were different. But when you're helping somebody out, when I was helping a broken family, I went to prisons and helped out kids that were in prison. I helped out kids that came from broken homes and were in gangs, and we'd sit down and have these incredible conversations, and we'd talk about a path out of that. We'd help out an auditorium full of kids and talk about the military and how that was a saving avenue for some of us in our world. When we would give back, we would get so much more in return. And I would drive home from those sessions completely oblivious to my cancer battle anymore. For a short period of time, I was useful again. I was able to give something to somebody else, and it gave me meaning in my life. They say you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. I really believe that's true. In other words, you show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. The 5 people you spend the most time with will define which direction you go in. So find 5 people that are going to pull you in a positive direction. Find a group of 5 where you are on the bottom, where they've done the things that you want to do. They're mentors. They're people that are going to continue pulling you up down a path that you're excited about. That's what the growth piece of it is. You're being pulled in that direction by that group of 5. But I challenge you to find another group of 5 as well. A group of 5 where you're at the top. A group of 5 where you're pulling up the average and you're giving to other people. And you're sharing your lessons learned and the things that you've accomplished on your journey. And if you do that, you're going to find out something amazing. If you're only going after growth, if you say, I'm just going to listen to that first G, I'm just going after growth, I'm going to just get on the rat wheel and just continue going and going and going in the rat race and acquiring things and experiences, then you kind of feel obligated to do that in this sense of pressure to achieve. When you give, that goes away. Because you'll realize you already have accomplished so much. You already are incredibly blessed, and you have something to offer somebody else. It takes the pressure off, so you don't say, I have to go out there and do this. I have to go do an Ironman, or I have to go do American Ninja Warrior. You'll say, I get to. I have the opportunity to do that. What an amazing blessing, because I've already accomplished amazing things. I don't have the pressure to do this too, but I get to. I still get to go after that. Giving is what allowed me to make that transition. So give every day. The last G is gratitude. Be thankful. This is a game changer. If you wake up every day and find something to be thankful for, I guarantee you will change your life. It's the way I start every one of my mornings. I wake up in a bad mood every single morning. Just do. I don't know why. But I wake up in a bad mood, and I started off thinking about the many blessings I have in my life, and I begin the day with a win. Something that I'm excited about, and think about the things that are going well and all the incredible blessings I've got in my life. And I found that can turn around my day. What I discovered through cancer is that could turn around even the worst day. Let me tell you about the worst day of my life. So in 2010, It's about a month after my initial diagnosis. So we went from, don't worry, it's probably not cancer, to it looks like cancer, to saying, but don't worry, we probably caught it early, we'll get rid of it, to all of a sudden it's stage 4 cancer, to it's a really rare cancer, we don't even really know how to treat it, to you probably only have a year and a half left to live. So in the space of 4 weeks, I mean, think about it, by the end of June, all of those things I experienced in that short time frame. And oh, by the way, my son is undergoing his ordeal as well. And so obviously the worst time in my life, but this particular day was even worse. I couldn't figure out why. I was heading down to Houston. I was going to this big cancer hospital. I'd worked really hard to get to this hospital. These are the specialists. It's called MD Anderson down in Houston. And I'd gone from San Antonio with the military docs, and they were doing a great job, but they just didn't have the resources to take care of me. And so I begged and pleaded, and it's really expensive, but I got them to send me to this nice cancer hospital out in Houston. And I'm driving there. It's a 3-hour drive, and I had this overwhelming sense of dread and anxiety, even more anxious than I was in this crazy month leading up to it. And I couldn't figure out why. And I'm riding with my family, and I'm super quiet, and I've got the kids in the back seat, and my wife there, and we just rode in silence for about 3 hours. And we get there, and my wife drops me off at the hospital, and I walk out and start to walk in this building. First time I've ever seen it. And I realize as I'm looking up at this tall hospital with all the skyscrapers in downtown Houston, why I'm so anxious. Because as I look up into these rooms, I realize I'm going to die in one of those rooms pretty soon. And it just was overwhelming. I stared up and I said, why is this happening, God? I've done everything right. I've had the right diet. I've lived the right life. I had the right fitness. I've done everything I'm supposed to. We churchgoers. I'm a Christian. And my son just had his lung removed, and I'm walking into the place where I'm going to die soon. Why? This isn't fair. Where are you in all of this? Where have you been the last month? And I had tears streaming down my face, and I opened up my eyes and immediately locked onto the eyes of another person. And as I'm watching this other person, this is a beautiful girl with beautiful blue eyes, and she's staring right at me. So I open my eyes, and we lock eyes with each other. And she's going into the hospital, and she is about 9 years old, and she's bald, and she's got a surgical mask over her face, and she's being wheeled in by her parents. And in that moment, I see that she is afraid. Every ounce of self-pity was gone in that second. Every ounce of, woe is me, why are you doing this to me, God? This isn't fair, was erased. And all I can think of is, I'm the most blessed person in the world. I got to marry the love of my life. I have 2 beautiful kids. I'm a fighter pilot doing things that people dream of. I'm 33 years old. God, whatever you do, help out that little girl who's not going to live to be a teenager. I don't care what you do for me. I'm so sorry. I've been selfish. And in that moment, I decided I'm never going to feel sorry for myself again. I learned the power of gratitude. That experience showed me that gratitude is a choice. That I got to decide what I was happy about every day. I got to decide how I was going to look at the world, and it made a difference for the rest of my life. It was a light switch. I went from the worst day of my life to immediately not feeling an ounce of self-pity from that point forward. Gratitude is a game changer. Find the things to be grateful for, the incredible blessings that God gives us every single day. So graduating class, grow. Do something that terrifies you and exhilarates you every day. Give. Give back to others. I promise that you'll get more in return than you could ever imagine. And be grateful. Every moment is a gift from God. Enjoy the adventure.